Thank you, Craig.
I guess I would just like to explain how it started. Because I can do that, I remember that. And the other thing as far as what's happening here, I mean, it seized the time. I mean, the opportunities now. We've got by 40 years of repression. We have to get out of a repressive type of attitude as far as what we can do in our imagination, and it seized the time now. But anyway, in 1966, Bill Miller and I and others started doing at Provo Park, which is now Martin Luther King Park. It was called Constitution Square Park or something at the time. We renamed it to Provo Park, and we started doing these feedings, sort of food on alms trip, and having concerts. And then in the process of those concerts, we would talk about the war. Anyway, by 1969, which there was a Republican, I mean, you can't believe it, but there was a Republican. They were all Republicans, except for Dillon's, on the city council. Anyway, I think I'm right, might be wrong there. Anyway, we took, train of thought. I'm sorry. This is one of the successes of the park is there wasn't one dominant individual that could speak really well in front of it. And I really kind of think that is a success in a sense. If I look back, why are other things? I mean, usually they go after the individual and they cream him, and then what he was for, they cream, what his head was about. And so I came from a very repressed San Diego background and didn't learn to read until I was 19 years old. And I come into this academic community, and basically the people that this school produced, which I finally ended up going, were my bosses in the Defense Department. I was part of a situation where first ICBM, the Atlas missile, I was on that program in Point Loma, San Diego, and research, and then I went off-site to Vandenberg Air Force Base, Topeka, Kansas, and ended up in Altus, Oklahoma, and lost my family in that whole process. They stayed there, she remarried, and then around 69, they came back to live back in Berkeley. So they got to experience the park, and they were part of it, the kids. So anyway, back to Provo Park. They've cut us off. We have no place to have these rallies. In the summertime being important, that because Sproul Hall did not exist as far as the anti-war movement. We didn't have that space, that 1 hour every few days, a week, or a month that we could do. So we created this thing where we had free speech. They cut it out, so I thought, well, let's do it where I lived. I happen to live right there above Bonko Burgers. And a woman friend at the time, we operated what was called the Red Square Dress Shop. And we had split up, and I still live there, and there was this piece of land, it was a mud hole, I parked my car there, so we decided to do it. As far as, my angle on it was a free speech angle. But once we decided to do it and have a meeting at the Red Square, where about 8 or 9 of us showed up and decided to do certain shows. Once we decided to do it, then that's where the park sort of came about. A guy named John Reed, who was an activist, anti-war activist, who was deceased in the last year. He came up with the idea of putting sod up there. He was a landscaper. So he told me how to do that. We raised Wendy and all. We went out and raised money. We went up to the valley and bought the sod. And that's sort of the story of how it all started. And
somebody donated the money.
pardon? Yes.
The guy who was
In the hospital.
it came from that guy who was in
One of the hidden stories in here. Okay, you want to hear about that? Okay, let's do that. Okay, see, one of the hidden stories, which I don't think it got part of the book, which I really think we should include it. Most important is this guy had inherited money from the tobacco.
Philip Morris. He was
Philip Morris. Mike Lyons, yeah. And so part of the money that made People's Park happen came from that. And what she would do is give me this increments of $5,000, and anybody that came up with an idea, I wrote a check. And most of them, I mean, you'd be surprised when people have money, what they can do, you know. And it's hard.
So keep up your money.
He gave money to other things. He started the bakery, forget the Horizon, what was it called, the bakery? A lot of the people's organizations that, like Newsreel, you know, which still exists, he helped start that with that money. The important thing too is, I mean, it's amazing here. I've been the FSM things and this and that, and they just are, with the park, it's because you had a piece of land. I think that's so important. You've got something that you can organize around. It's just amazing that we're still here doing this. We're still we're still alive. All of us are organizers probably in one way or another. And, you know, we're trying to make the change. Like I say, I've never seen, I mean, I'm a little pessimistic, but on the other hand, if you add up the thing, if you want to be scientific now is the time to go. I mean, it's going now, and I'm hoping that things like this in the park, and things that we start to do. Okay. What I was going to talk tomorrow a little about, but I'm not going to have a lot of time. I think we should go for broke here now. I think we should go for broke. We should talk about wage slavery. You know, the idea of some other individual forcing somebody to work, and where they kill, you know, 5,000 just up front a year in this country, but then they die of all kinds of other things after that. But we just sort of accept that idea, that hierarchical nature of the society. Now, why can't I talk about this now? I couldn't talk about it when I really worked. I mean, the employer would get after me. He would, if I talked about it at my union, they would cut me out in work and things like that. So when I'm retired here, and I'm thinking, here it's I'm 71 years old, and 40-year anniversary. Why not go for broke?
I don't know if you remember what it was like in 1969 in Berkeley, but I was newly single, and I would go to the parks, and at the park with the kids, I had two little kids. My kids were 1.5 and 3, and I'd have to swing